1943, young Army recruit George G. Ritchie was left unattended in an isolation room for 24 hours. He'd been brought in with an extreme case of pneumonia. Because no one treated him, George died. He was only 20 years old. The medical staff gathered around his lifeless body. They were devastated and worried about fallout. George's death could have been avoided. One medical officer pulled a sheet over George's face and officially called his time of death. The officer instructed an attendant to prepare George's body for the morgue, and everyone left the room. 9 minutes later, the attendant returned. In the corner of his eye, he noticed something. Was George's chest moving? Well, it couldn't be. They checked his vital signs multiple times and nothing. Still, something didn't feel quite right. The attendant checked again. George was dead, but for whatever reason, the attendant still had an odd feeling that something was off. George was given a shot of adrenaline. George woke up with a bang. He sat right up and got on his feet. He was drowsy but fully recovered from pneumonia. The only thing on his mind was returning to Virginia to finish his Army medical training. While George was on his way back, he stopped at a small town to ask for directions. But everyone he spoke to just ignored him, like he was invisible. But what was this beeping noise ringing over and over again in George's ear? It wasn't there when he began the journey. How did he begin the journey again? He was flying, or was he driving? He couldn't remember. The beeping was getting louder until it turned into a deafening roar. It was medical equipment. George was training to be a medic, and he knew the sound was from a heart monitor. George never left the hospital. He was lying in the same bed he died in just 4 days earlier. The adrenaline kick-started his heart, and he started breathing again. Though George was officially dead for quite a while, he made a full recovery. In 1965, George told his story to one of his postgraduate psychiatry students, a man named Raymond Moody. Moody was fascinated, so much that he dedicated the rest of his career to figuring out what happens on the other side.
I don't mind saying that after talking with over 1,000 people who have had these experiences, and having experienced many times some of the really baffling and unusual features of these experiences, it has given me great confidence that there is a life after death. As a matter of fact, I must confess to you in all honesty, I have absolutely no doubt on the basis of what my patients have told me that they did get a glimpse of the beyond.
Moody called this phenomenon a near-death experience, or NDE, coining the term in his 1975 book, Life After Life. His work inspired countless others to collect massive amounts of data on people who technically died but were revived. One of these researchers is Dr. Michael Sabom, who's written several books on NDEs. Sabom's research is where things start to get interesting. Sabom interviewed people who'd suffered cardiac arrest, died, and claimed to have had an out-of-body experience, an NDE. These patients were asked to describe their resuscitation. What was happening in the room? Who was there? What sounds did they recall? The patients' answers were compared to those of a control group who had also suffered cardiac crisis and were revived, but without temporary death. Patients in the control group gave vague, mostly incorrect answers. They were guessing what happened to them. They didn't really know. But the NDE group, they described the resuscitations almost perfectly, like they were in the room, separate from their bodies, watching themselves come back to life. The accuracy was enough for Sabom to conduct further studies. And like Raymond Moody, Sabom inspired others to repeat his research. If multiple researchers independently conduct similar or exactly the same experiment, and they all find the same results, then it's hard to refute the truth. This is precisely what happened with Sabom's study. Over the years, researchers have asked thousands of patients to describe events surrounding their NDEs. And despite being dead, these patients are roughly 92 to 97% accurate in their observations. Doctors and nurses have also come forward with some pretty spooky stories. Dr. Carl Green, a neurosurgeon, had a patient flatline and then describe her entire surgery, down to the most intricate details. And Green is not alone. Patients often have out-of-body experiences during surgeries where they temporarily die. This happened to my dad. My pop loved Harleys. Dad's first wreck, a teenage girl ran a stop sign. She hit him square, his leg was severed and reattached. Mamas don't let your babies grow up to be bikers. Almost 20 years later, an SUV ran a light, hit him square. Same side. This time was worse. Way worse. Dad was airlifted from the scene and died in the helicopter. They defibbed him and brought him back, but he lost so much blood they didn't think he'd make it to the hospital. He did, but just barely. During surgery, he flatlined again. He said he felt weightless and realized he was watching his operation, but then he felt a pull. He turned and saw his mother, who had been gone a long time. He said, "Mom, I hurt real bad. I can't do it." She said, "Yes, you can. It's not your time yet." They got Dad's heart started again and brought him back. He said the experience was more real than real life. But sometimes people do more than just float a few feet above their bodies. Some people have described events that took place down the hall from their deathbed or in a different room in the hospital. So not only do our souls have weight, they stick around to watch our physical bodies die. And we don't just stay in the room. We wander. And while we wander, we're not alone. Almost all NDEs follow a similar pattern. It starts with the sensation of absolute peace and calm as you enter a bright white light. Through the light, you enter a tunnel, and your physical body is left behind. In 1791, British Admiral Sir Francis Beaufort almost drowned. After he was revived, he described a feeling as, in his words, the most perfect tranquility. He felt no bodily pain. His physical senses were gone, but his mind was very active. The Admiral saw his life pass before his eyes in reverse. This is a common theme in NDEs. Your life plays either in reverse chronological order or starts from your birth until your death. Once the show is over, you see yourself completely, really for the first time ever, and then you move on. And on the other side, people are waiting for you. Dr. Mary Neal drowned while kayaking in Chile. She was technically dead for 30 minutes, long enough for her body to turn blue before being pulled from the water.
And then I was released to the heavens. My spirit rose up and out of the river, and I was immediately greeted by a group of people or spirits who had known me and loved me as long as I have existed.
Seeing people on the other side is almost always a positive experience. Minister Don Piper was driving home to Alvin, Texas one night and was hit by an 18-wheeler in a head-on collision. His body became part of the car. Actually, his thigh bone ended up somewhere on the road behind him. As he entered the white light, loved ones also met him. They were waiting for him next to a large, ornate gate. And it wasn't a short trip. Don spent 30 minutes in heaven. In the West, most people describe what is essentially heaven after they die. But just like all ancient cultures, everyone interprets their experience based on their personal biases and background. A Christian will say he saw Jesus in heaven. An atheist will enter something like a bright white ether. Muslims go to Jannah. While there's something or someone with us. Emery was a first-year law student who liked fast cars. After lying to her parents and boyfriend about what she was doing, she went out driving with friends. Halfway through the drive, she had a sudden urge to go home. Her friends agreed, but on the way, there was an accident. Emery's body was thrown through the windshield. She got to her feet covered in blood and walked over to where her friends were sitting. She felt like she'd been unconscious and had the strangest dreams. She asked her friends what was happening, but no one would speak. Her parents pulled up a short while later, and even though paramedics tried to stop him, Emery's father was running. She followed his gaze and realized he was running toward a body. She chased after him. He was on his knees sobbing over her. Emery was dead. Between his tears, her father said, "Why are you doing this?" Out of nowhere, a voice replied, "This was the agreement." Emery's father said, "No, it wasn't. The agreement was that I would watch them grow old, but never live to experience this." Emery knew her father wasn't having this conversation out loud. It was happening in his subconscious. He didn't even know he was speaking. It was his soul speaking to someone. The voice started to disappear into a place she couldn't quite see, but Emery knew it was there. She tried to follow it. The voice was so calming and peaceful, but her world was slowly fading to black. The next time she woke up, she was in the ICU. Thousands of people have had NDEs. You can get lost for hours reading about them online. They sound serene, life-altering, usually in a good way.
I'm Don Piper, and I died on January 18th, 1989.
Don Piper says he was depressed for a long time after he came back to life. But in time, he realized how valuable dying had been to him, to his soul. He felt saved, especially knowing we're never actually alone. But you can't just go and have a near-death experience whenever you want to. An NDE requires a certain type of permission, because not everyone goes into the light. Some people go somewhere else.